Do you want to start an e-commerce business selling products online? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on this episode of Be Your Own Boss, we hear from Shijo Vadakkan about the processes and the steps of starting an online business. How do you get your license? What kind of products do you sell? Shijo shares with us his life journey and how he got to this point where he runs an online business. And by the way, if you want to skip straight to the part where he talks about the steps of how to start the business, check out this timestamp. Now, if you care about the human aspect of it, the mindset behind the business, check out the entire episode and I'm sure you'll appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, do you aspire to be an entrepreneur? To build your own business? To leave a legacy behind? If you want to know how to get started, or if you're already on your journey and want some help on how to tackle the challenges you're facing, this show is for you. Here at Be Your Own Boss, we hear from entrepreneurs about their stories, some very practical tips, and some inspiration. It's time to get started.
Welcome to another episode of Be Your Own Boss. Our guest this week is Shijo Vadakkan, the founder of VKN Enterprises. VKN Enterprises is an e-commerce company selling consumer lifestyle products under their own brands like Dolsano and Spoolex, and also helping other brands establish their e-commerce presence. Shijo was born in Kerala and raised in the UAE, and also later went back home to Kerala for further studies. Let's hear from Shijo about his journey, his story. Shijo, thank you so much for taking out time and joining us here on the Be Your Own Boss podcast. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Sachin. Thank you very much. And it's my, pleasure to be on the podcast. And, it's again a pleasure to meet you again and speak to you. Yeah.
Same here, man. Same here. So, Shijo, let's start with your journey right from your childhood. So, you were born in Kerala, and then how old were you when you guys moved to UAE?
Yeah. So I was born there. I did my, UKG till my UKG first standard there. And then I moved on my second standard to UAE. So my father has been here for a very long time. He, has been running his own business here. So, and he's been here for around, at that point, around 20, 25 years here in UAE. So, yeah, and that's how I, came here and then, studied here till my 8th standard and then went back for higher education.
Okay. Okay, great. So your father was running a business here in the UAE, and
Yeah.
and do you have any siblings, by the way? Any brothers,
Yeah,
sisters?
I have a younger brother
Mhm.
named Lijo. So he's been here as well. He's done his education here, and then the same thing. He's gone back for higher education. Now he's with me. He's working in a company. I do my part of business. Yeah, yeah.
Got
So
it.
we've been together for a long time. Yeah.
Nice. So back in your childhood, when the environment at home was that your father is a businessman, and was your mother also working, or was she a homemaker?
My mom is a homemaker. So she's
Homemaker.
been a
Hmm.
homemaker. My dad has a business, not like something huge, but a decent one, and
Yeah.
that's how it was. And before that, I think in my younger ages, I think he was working before he
Hmm.
had his own business. Yeah, so he was
Right.
working in a company in Dubai, and then he slowly transitioned to business. Yeah.
So you have followed your father's footstep as well. So you also worked and you transitioned. We'll come to that part of the story. But tell me about the childhood, right? When growing up, here in the UAE, did you have aspirations already at that age to that you will grow up and start your own business one day?
So I think maybe my younger times, I think I didn't have much of aspiration, to be frank, and I was more of a studious kid. I was a knowledge seeker at that time as well. So I could remember that I would read anything and everything that is available. So I would go through the newspapers. I'll read through the whole of the newspapers, and at study I do my studies, and I read a lot of books. So reading is something that I caught up, and I think it's more of a thirst for knowledge. So that's what was there in my younger age. Other than that, I think I was more of a passive consumer of information, not like an active, using the information. I was more of a passive consumer. I think
Passive
the
consumer.
entrepreneurship, passive consumer in the sense, more of, I read the newspaper, I read uh, the books, maybe fictitious books. So, it's more of a consumer mindset. And then I think my actual breakthrough or my opening came up during my college days where, I got more exposure to internet. Then I started to see all these entrepreneurs and, people doing stuff, and that's the age where you see that you have to do something in life, and you are on the search. Before that, you are not on a search to do something, set out to do something. You are more of a person who consumes information. There is two categories of people. Some are consumers, and they consume for the purpose of consuming, and some are, creators. Those who consume the information, they want to use it somewhere, in their life or in their business or in their relationships. So I think I became more of a creator person during my college days.
Wow, that's very well said, Shijo. I think I had not thought of this way. So yeah, you're right. There are consumers and then there are creators. So you transition from being a consumer in the early days and later on to being a creator with that information and try to do something. So after your studies here, by around eighth grade, you moved to Kerala and you did your further studies.
Yeah, in terms of my bachelor's, I did my mechanical engineering. So I've been not like extremely good with my studies, but I do my due diligence to study. I spend a lot of time on my study, but I don't know. I think it's more. I tend to focus on what is meant to be done at that time. So, but to be frank, I define myself over studious. So after my plus two, I was looking for what I have to take for my bachelor's, and there are a lot of options. Right, you have civil, you have computer science, you have all these options, and I think somehow I feel like I was a designer and a creator again. That thing was there in my mind, and I liked physics sort of. So I was like, where do I find a place where I can design? And I was more of designing physical stuff. So when I looked at all the courses which were available, and obviously for Indians, engineering is what the main option is. So out of all those options which are available in engineering, I thought mechanical is that would fit me best at that point of time, and that's how I got into mechanical engineering. Yeah, it was good. I liked the subject. Mostly, I wanted to be on a creative aspect, like designing. So I like to design machines, and robots were sort of a fascination for me. So robotics, but I didn't
Wow.
like the coding aspect of it. But then I was like, let me get into the mechanical aspects of it. So that's how I ended up in mechanical engineering.
Right. So your passion, your interest was in physical things where you can build and design and build things. This was
Yeah,
your keen interest.
right,
Nice.
right. Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened after your after you finished your engineering? Did you start working there in Kerala, or did you move back here to Dubai?
Yeah. So after my engineering, during my engineering, again, I always wanted to be a designer, mechanical engineering designer, and I think I learned a lot of softwares in engineering and designing. Then I really wanted to get into a career in mechanical design. Uh, I in India, Bangalore is one of the main places for designing companies in India. So I was like wanted to be at the best place, so I went over to Bangalore, tried to find a job there. It was not that easy because you are a fresher and not that easy. So I went there. I tried to find a job over 6 months. I couldn't find something, and then I got something back in my own hometown as a mechanical design engineer, a very entry level job. And the first thing I got grasp of it. I started there, and that's how I started my career. And I was there for around 1 year. I learned the tools, I implemented, quickly moved ahead, and then I was like, I wanted to do the next step in the design part. So I didn't want to just go and design and be more of like a draftsman sort of stuff. I wanted to, get into the core engineering of, analyzing what I design, how it withholds to the pressure and all this kind of stuff. So I got into analysis answers. So I did a 6 months course there for analysis, and then that's after that I came to UAE.
Interesting. And the design that you were creating, you were doing some designing work there, right? What kind of products are these?
Yeah. So the design part, I was working in crusher company. So they were mostly designing machines for crushers, rock crushers. These are industries where you break up the rocks to create sand and gravels and all this kind of stuff. They break up hills and implement it. So
Right,
these are
right,
huge machines, and not doing the whole thing. I was part of a team that does the whole thing.
right.
Yeah, one of the unique companies from my hometown. Very unique, a very small company which grew up very fast.
Yeah. But by the way, where is your hometown? You mentioned about the city in Kerala. Which city in Kerala?
So I was from Thrissur.
Trishur. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, cultural capital of Kerala.
Yeah, Trishur is nice. I have been to Trishur. So, Shijo, when you were working in this company in Trishur, and when you were, designing these, the part of the team designing these machines, right? At that time, did you have any idea of about like that you wanted to do, start something on your own later on, or were you still focused on the present at that time?
So I think I was more of more of a learner at that stage. So I've just graduated from college again. I want to learn about the world, how it works. How I can use my skills, use my education. I wanted to be one of the best designers at that point. So things have changed now, as of now, where I have landed. But at that point, I had the aspiration to be the best designer, and I was not looking towards having a design agency of my own at that point, but I was looking at being the best, being in the best company as a designer. That's what my aspirations were at that point. So I was doing everything I could
Yeah.
at that point uh, to match that aspiration. Something like learn all the tools, see how things work in the company, what the procedures are, go online and learn about it, and maybe, learn about how I can tackle interviews, get into bigger companies, that sort of thing. So I was not necessarily looking to start something on of my own.
Okay. And how did the move to Dubai happen then?
So I was working there, and my aspiration was to be, the best designer in one of the biggest companies in India. That was my aspiration. Obviously, the other part was my parents were here, and they wanted me to be here, work here, and be together here. So that was again another part of the game. And I was like, okay, let me come to Dubai. My parents are obviously here, so that was easy. Like you get a visiting visa and then come for staying here, and then I searched for a job here. That's how it is, just like anybody else. I came here, no connections, nothing. So that was like plain job seeker. So I just came here, searched for jobs, and found one. Luckily, found one, found a good one. It was not purely into designing. It was sort of a designing uh, plus sales support sort of job. So that's what the job was. So I was supporting the sales team in terms of the technical part of designing. That's what it was. It was not a purely design company, and again, it was into 3D printing, and it was fascinating to learn about 3D printing, and the job fascinated me, and I was like, and the company was good as well, the brand was good, and I was like, let me give it a try. This was the first thing that came up. Let me give it a try, and
Right.
at that point, I came here, and I was like, any role I get in, I'll give it my best shot. That was the mindset I got into at that point.
Okay, so you were working in this company where you were more of sales support and a little bit of designing. And so, how long did you stay with this company?
Yeah. So in terms of the role, as I said, there was a customer facing part of it as well as a technical. And my previous my previous roles were mostly technical. I was at the back of a computer doing more of a technical stuff, the designing, and so this helped me to mold myself in terms of maybe talking to customers. I was not a pro on this. So this role was very helpful for me to mold myself. And I think during that phase was when I realized, there are certain jobs where you can build connections, speak to other people, and have the business part of the business. So there is more of a technical part of the business and a business part of the business. And I was kind of enjoying the business part of the business, and I was like, what's the point in sitting behind a desk and learning the technical skills? So that's how I got more attracted to the business part of it. So I'm not like a business graduate or anything like that, but I felt like this was more of an opportunity because while I am on the role, I can polish my skills in terms of a person who I am. So this was when I wanted to shift towards that side from away from the technical part. So the role actually helped me to do it, and role actually helped me what I told you, right, in terms of constructively using the information. So the books I read, I could apply it here. If I face a challenge, I could seek out the information and try to modify it here. So this is, I think, one of the biggest learnings I had from the job. And other thing was, there was a colleague of mine who was there. Yeah, he was quite good at speaking to the customers and you know convincing them and taking them in a good way through the sales process. So that was also something that I noted. This is something I have to work on. So I worked on that as well. And the first job is good in terms of a lot of lessons I've learned, and I've been there with them for around 2.5 years with that company. And at that point, I felt I had learned a lot on the job. I had contributed the best I can, and then I felt my growth was a bit stagnant there. And at that point, I got another opportunity as well, and I thought, okay, let me take up the next role which is coming up because I felt there was not much growth in terms of what I can contribute to the role where I was.
Got it, got it. So once you reached that kind of a saturation point, and you also received another offer, so it was a good transition for you to move on to another job.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the another job was in a similar industry, same role, but different products. The products were different. The brands I was working was different, and there was more of a growth opportunity there. So I'm more of a a growth oriented guy. So I cannot be still in terms of the information I consume or the growth I have. So if I feel like I'm stagnant, then it reduces my motivation. So growth is what motivates me always. So I think that's one of the biggest factors um, that motivated me to do the jump at that point.
Yeah, yeah, and you're a learner. Like that's very evident in the way it looks like you've always been passionate about learning and growing, learn and grow. And if that stops, you want to move on to where you can learn and grow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I think
yeah.
my motivation to start on my own
Hmm.
is also that, because I could learn new stuff and start implementing them fast. Because if you are
Yeah,
in a traditional role, or if you are in a a corporate environment, it's not always that easy to learn what you apply or create systems, because there is a set of systems that you actually follow. I think that is
yeah,
one of the reasons that made me jump.
yeah. And tell us about that. So you were working, and then how did you come up with this idea of this company that you started, VKN Enterprises, and the e-commerce business?
So I told you, because at college is when I started to seek out information on what I want to do, how I want to do it, how I can be the best. And the other thing is, learn from people who are very successful. That's the biggest part, I think, and that's one of the best part that internet has offered you. Because if you don't have the internet, you're basically in a pool of people that you are surrounded with, and you actually see what comes from that environment, and your limits are defined by that environment. But what internet actually helped me is, like, I could actually see entrepreneurs and people who are doing good. Or maybe you can take an example of any entrepreneur. You could actually Google it up, see how they have lived their life, what they have done, and you could actually uh, feel that it's possible for you. So that's when I wanted to do something of my own. And while at work also, especially from my job in Dubai, when I got exposure to the business part of a real business, I wanted to do something on my own. Even in college, I had this yearning to do something of my own other than the academic part. So I had done, website designing company, where I actually went to the internet, designed websites for other companies, and I did the sales part as well as the designing part. So that was a very short stint, but still it was something, where I could realize myself that I could actually go to a client, offer them something, and they could give me money for an exchange of a service. So I had that experience, and even in Dubai, I actually wanted to do something, and I was exploring on how to start something. And when, as people who want to start something online, I went through a lot of YouTube videos and selling online, and Amazon is one thing that came up, and I learned how to do it myself, and I could test it on the sites as well, because it doesn't take much of time. So that's how I started on the site.
Okay. So you had that inclination towards wanting to do something on your own, and also you also tried something and in your college days, right? And and you're right about you know uh, internet being a great source of inspiration and practical tips. That's exactly what we do here at on the Be Your Own Boss podcast. We bring in the stories so that other people listening to your episode right now here will take your example, and then they will also implement similar things. So you learned the technical side of selling products online on Amazon. Tell us about that journey. Like, how did you start? What kind of courses did you do? Some online courses?
I think it became more organic. It was more of an organic thing, where I saw some videos. I didn't do a formal course on that. I saw a lot of videos, and I was like, let me start trying it. It was not like, let me build a huge empire out of it. That was not the goal. I was like, let me try it, how it works. And I was like, I registered myself on the platform. I found some products which were familiar to me in real life, and I was like, how can I source it now? So that was the next step. Let me see how I can source it, and let me
Yeah.
see if this thing actually sells, as that is being said on the video. So it was, I was trying to source it, and I was like, what's the best place to source it? Okay, I went on Alibaba, and I was like, this is the best place to source it. I don't know how to source it. I just messaged somebody, and I asked them if they could send it across. They told they would send it across. I found a way to get it to Amazon, and it went to Amazon, and it was sold, and that's how it was. And that was a very organic process, nothing formal. And this took time. It was not like I started the first month and by the second month I was making a lot of money. That was not the case. I was doing it on the side. I was buying 2 or 3 products, maybe 10 products a month. That's it. I think one of the products took off, especially during COVID time, and that was actually when my eyes opened. And during COVID times, uh, during COVID times, everybody had a lot of time on their plate, and whenever I find time, my time doesn't
Yeah.
go waste. I use it.
Yeah.
So I found this particular product. I was just browsing on Amazon. I was like, this has a good demand there. Let me try to source it. Let me find a supplier for it. And I found a supplier, started selling it. It blew up like crazy. My eyes opened, and it was a product related to COVID. Related to COVID, I had 2 products. One of the products really blew up. Other product blew up, but then it got banned by Amazon. It was masks at that time. You had masks which were there, which was selling like crazy in terms of pricing and in terms of
Hmm.
demand. But then you had this internet companies who stopped advertising them on platforms. Yeah. So that's when
Hmm.
I hit around uh, 75, 80K with a single product. And I was like, this is something serious. This
Yeah.
is something serious, and I have not seen that numbers before. And this was within a frame of 1 month, and I was like, if I can
Yeah.
do it with one product, let me find another product. That's
Right.
how I got it in a serious way.
So basically, you're focusing on studying the market and understanding what is required in the market, which products have a demand, and then you go out and source those products from Alibaba and Alibaba.com, and through Alibaba.com, you're reaching out to manufacturers to source those, right? Shijo, let's go one step back here. When you started, right, and you said that you registered on Amazon. Let's talk about that process a little bit here. If someone is in Dubai, want to register themselves on Amazon, what's that process? Did you go out and get a license first?
So at that point, I didn't get a license because when you sell on Amazon, Amazon doesn't require you for having a license, because in their global program they have 2 types of accounts. There is a personal account, there is a business account. So for a personal account, if a personal guy wants to sell on Amazon, they don't ask you for a license. And at that
Hmm.
point, I started off from souk.com. When the souk was the thing here, I started off from souk.com, not actually on Amazon. Started off from souk.com. At that point, they didn't require. And then I came to Amazon when they upgraded. All the platform changed. So I didn't require a license at that point. But, when things got, the numbers got bigger, I did take a license of my own, because, I didn't want to do something without a license, because
Yeah.
things are a bit gray there in terms of if you would require a license, if you don't require a license. So if you're in UAE, you do require a license, I think, to sell on Amazon. But Amazon doesn't ask you for a license to sell. Another thing is, other duty is, why doesn't Amazon ask you for a license to sell in a specific countries? Because you could be in UAE and you could sell in Japan or Netherlands or Canada or Mexico, and you could
Hmm.
be remote and you don't need a license there. So that is another thing. Yeah. So initially I
Right.
didn't have a license, but when things picked up in the experiment phase, I didn't have a license. But when things picked up, I made sure I had the right licenses so that I could do it.
Got it. So yeah, because in the initial phase, you're just trying this out. You're not even sure whether you want to do, this. You're experimenting. So you just did it, and then when you did decide that this is picking up and you want to go for the license, where did you go and register? And talk us through that process of getting a license here in Dubai.
Yeah. Getting a license, you need an e-commerce license. That's what we ask you to do. So if you are
Hmm.
selling anything on in an online platform, you need an e-commerce license. I got one from Shams, which is around 6,000 dirhams. That will cost you yearly 6,000. That's it for a license.
Right.
And the recommendation is, you can only sell products online and you can't physically touch products. That's what it is. So if you need to touch products, if you need to have warehouse on your own, or if you are shipping to the customer on your own, then you can't have that. You need a trading license. But if you're doing business where you don't touch the product and you can do it from Amazon, you don't touch the product physically. In that case,
Hmm.
you just require an e-commerce license.
Right. And to get this e-commerce license, you went to Shams, right? You said,
Yeah. So I took the e-commerce license from Shams. I took it through an agency, so I didn't know no one here. So I went through that agency. I saw that ad pop up. I went through the ad. Looked like a very credible company. I went and met them. I felt that they were good, and I went ahead with them. Yeah, that's what I
got
did.
it.
And at that point, I think they had an offer as well. So I made my step to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And so once you registered you got your license, the e-commerce license, did you hire people to help you with this business later on? How did you grow it?
In terms of hiring people, initially, I was doing products of my own and I was doing everything on my own. But, again, I reached a block where, I didn't have that much of time and uh, my learning was not as fast as, what I wanted to happen. So I wanted to grow
Hmm.
it faster. So I actually wanted somebody who knew how to do things to come on board. So that's how I, got in one of the guys. I had one team, one guy first, and then he was not performing that well, and then I found another guy who was performing well, and he was already an expert. And my thing became like I find the products and he does the back end, the whole thing.
Hmm.
I hired someone who is managing for me remotely.
Right. Remotely and managing the inventory and all these kind of things while you focus on the product research and what to sell. Right.
Yeah, so I focus mostly on product research, on what to sell, maybe the branding part of it, how the brand should be, what the design should be. I focus more on that part, and the back end part I leave it to my guy who is more of an expert, and I now have like 2 to 3 people who are working on it. So they manage that part of it. I do have my criteria. I do monitor the sales. I do monitor my expenses in terms of ads. I make sure we are not off from the numbers. That's what I make sure. And if we are off, I get back to the team and check with them what's going on and help them give direction on that. Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break. You're listening to the Be Your Own Boss podcast.
And in this break today, I'm going to play an ad that has been created by school students.
Oh, hello there. Hello. You want some spare cheese? Yes, thank you. Can you just like get someone who's gonna die? No, we're gonna die! Hello, are you okay? Yeah. What happened to you? The homeless man stole my credit card. Where is he? He's there. Ron should take this guy to jail. He'll probably get his credit card back now. You stay there, mister. Get on a chain, you will have to pay a $10,000 fine. Here's your credit card back, sir. Please keep it secure now. Do not give it back to anyone else. Okay. Bye.
And now, back to the show.
So, Shijo, let's talk about the financial aspect here a little bit. So, at this stage, you had your license and you started, hiring people. Uh, You had already quit your job, right? At what point did you quit your job?
I was sure that, I was able to make what I was making in my job. I reached a point where, I was like, I've reached a stage where, I was able to comfortably earn what I was making in my job. You know? And the thing on the side was getting a bit too much, first thing. And second thing is, if it gets too much and you are on a roll, and then, you don't have a life, spend some of your time there, and then you come home and spend some of your time here, and your life goes off balance. So at that point, I was like, let me do this full time. And then I had the aspiration to do it full time as well. And even at my job, the growth factor was stopped. So instead of me looking for another role where I could, grow, I was like, my next thing would be, the e-commerce space. And this is where I would want to grow. So why would I find another role if I can put my effort here? And the other thing is, I realized that why should I put half of my effort here and half of my effort somewhere else if this has unlimited potential, right? So that was my thought. If the thing about e-commerce had unlimited potential, and if I truly believe in it, why
Yeah,
would I put half of my effort there? And I think the next thing was, at that point, I was uh, not I was a conscious person, but I didn't have all the answers with me. Right? So I used to consult with coaches, and I used to speak to people who are doing better. I used to go for meetups. I think that's when to improve myself, I came to Toastmasters as well. I wanted
yeah,
to really improve my communication. That's how we met as well,
yeah,
long time before. Uh, so I found this, one friend of mine. He was Her name is Iba, and she was starting her coaching career at that point. I had a session with her, and one of the things she said to me was like, in terms of making the jump, is you determine how much money you need to survive in your environment. First. And second thing is you figure out a way to support that. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to support your necessities plus make something on the side, then you should be comfortable enough to take the jump, right? So I think that factor helped me a lot because you know people don't know when should I take the jump. So this helped me to give me a guidance on when I should take the jump. I was able to satisfy my necessities and needs of day to day from my business,
hmm,
then
hmm.
make something on the side, and I was like, why should I fear, right? Because I'm able to meet my needs every day. So I think this gave me a clarity on when I should take the jump. Yeah, that's what it is.
Right, right. So you took a very calculative approach to this whole thing. You first of all you sought some guidance, and your friend who helped you in this, your coach, uh, help you to like plan your financials in a way that what's your requirements, and once you reach this point that you're able to make enough to meet your monthly expenses and make a little bit more, and then you said, okay, this is the point where you can buy back your time by quitting, right? When you
Right.
quit your job, you bought your time back.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's I don't know. Some people are like you can burn your bridges and jump on to what you want to do, and then if you don't have a bridge which you burned, you can't go back. So you have to make sure that this works, or you do everything in your ability to make sure that this works. But somehow for me, it doesn't work that way. I need a peace of mind on peace of mind so that I do my work properly. So I didn't prefer that method, and I made sure things would go right before I made the jump. I know there are people who don't have a plan, but they cut the bridge and go ahead, become very successful. But I was not that kind of guy. I was more of a risk averse guy.
Great. So you made this transition and then you started 100% focusing on your business. And you said that you hired people to manage the inventory and all those things, and you were focusing on the product research and the marketing side, right? Tell us about the marketing part of it. Product research is that you did your this is something that you were doing, but marketing products online. Um, is this something that you had done before in any of your jobs, or did you have the experience for it?
I didn't have experience on the job for it. Mostly, it's again, YouTube is my source, and I think it's a very valid and credible source, abundance of information, and some of the content creators out there does a great job in providing value and providing tips. And I think it's one of the best source for knowledge. The only thing is, you have to be consistent on what you want, more disciplined on what you want and what you're searching for, and not, sway away by the other contents which pop up. If that is the case, you can almost find an answer to anything you want in your business or in life. So that's where I learned the marketing part, the branding part, and that's how, again, it's more of an organic process. So nothing learned on the job. And I feel like I'm more of a tech-savvy guy in terms of learning how things work, and I like technology, and I've been always fascinated with. I told you, right? I had a website designing company, so the internet was something that fascinated me always, like a curiosity factor. So I knew how it works, the whole thing, how it works, and then I built on top of it.
Great, great. And so you, to market your products, do you run ads and like paid ads and all that?
Yeah, so we run ads. We run PPC ads, paid per click ads. So the thing about Amazon is you can actually see how much of a product sells on the platform. So before you go ahead with a product, you can actually see how much of traffic is there for the product, how much of the money is made on a single product by a single seller, and how much of demand is there in the market. That's one thing you can see. And the other thing is you can actually see which keywords brings traffic and sales to a particular product. So these are data which is already available, like compared to traditional retail business. Of course, traditional retail business has their own data, but compared to smaller businesses, here you have more of a data and everything is documented. You have tools to do that. So you basically what you do is you see uh, a high traffic keyword, like a keyword which has a lot of searches. You find that and you see how many products come under those searches. So that basically shows you, how much of consumers are coming to the platform searching for a particular product, and how many products are being marketed for that keyword. And if there is a lack of supply for the keyword in terms of products, there is a space for you to enter. And if the sales of the products which are targeted for those keywords are high, then there is potential for you to make some business out of it as well. That's how you market it. And usually what you do is you run PPC ads to target those products.
Great, great. And uh, it's like somewhat like a chicken and egg story, right? So what comes first? Do you market the products first and get the orders and then procure, or do you procure it first and keep it in the Amazon warehouse and then start market
So
your
I think
products?
I think we I think all of our products starts with data. That's where we start. We don't we don't find some product as fascinating, and I want to do it, and we start doing it, and we end up in a mistake of having a stock and the product not selling. That's what not what we get into. And I feel like I'm more of a logical guy, so I see where the business comes in, and I'm not particularly passionate about a single product. I'm more passionate about where the demand is and where can we fill it. We see where the demand is as per the data, and then we find a product for that demand. So basically, the risk is lower because if you are suppose Maybe the other side of it would be like you are a, like a health expert, or you are passionate about health and you want to start something in the health space, and you think this thing would have a demand, and you bring in the product, and then it doesn't sell. We don't get into that. We mostly see what sells, what there is a demand for, and then we introduce that product. That's what we more focus on.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a very smart thing to do. So, Shijo, now when you look back and compare your current life as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, versus your previous life when as an employee, right? What do you think? What's the difference? What is it about being an entrepreneur that you love the most?
That's a very good question. Uh, I think again it comes to the one of the learning part. Second is the creating part. I think that's what I like the most, because uh, it actually helps me to implement what I learn. And there is a challenge always where I need to be on top of something, learn something, implement something, guide my staff, teach them how to do things. So this sort of whole sort of activities does motivate me more, because if I
Hmm.
am in an environment where I'm supposed to do a set of tasks and do that for every day, somehow it doesn't help me in terms of motivation. This helps me a lot in terms of motivation. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I get excited when the business works. So we create systems, create processes, and things just work like clockwork. It motivates me, and it
Yeah.
excites me. So I think these are the two things. And the other thing is, initially you need to spend a lot of time. I think we need to spend a lot of time in terms of when we start our own business. There is a lot of learning to be done, a lot of structures to be put up. So there is a lot of time being spent. But I think over time, we can buy back our time, and
Yeah.
work on projects that we are more passionate about, look for new opportunities, while the systems that we already built go
Hmm.
go as planned. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. You said that there are in the initial phase there is a lot of time and efforts you need to put in. So someone who's listening right now to this episode, who's at that initial stage where just getting started in the e-commerce business, uh, what would be your advice to them? Are there anything that maybe you did right, or some of the mistakes that you did? You think what would you tell them based on your learnings?
I think my advice would be, this is more of a commerce is more of a channel where you can start it on the sites. So you can try out different things, and all the things you try out will not work. And this would be more of a learning curve. That's the first thing. So it gives you the freedom to do it on the site. Maybe you are doing one product on the site, it doesn't take much of time, or you might be doing, research weekly once, and you learn how to do things. And
Yeah,
slowly by slowly, it's more of an organic process. You could get a coach and make it faster, but everybody wouldn't have the resource to have a coach, first thing, and everybody might not have the kind of money to pay to a coach, or wouldn't have the direction to do that. So I never started off with a coach. I just did it one step at a time, and I think that would be the best advice. Other thing is, if you do have the resources, to get someone to coach you, or ask someone, that would also be helpful in going faster. But
mm,
the thing about e-commerce is you can learn the ropes on the sites, and once it gets big enough, you can do it full time. So I think that would be the thing. And the other thing is, try it on the sites and see if it can, cover up your expenses, and you know, give you a comfortable savings before you make the jump.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very very good advice, Shijo. Thanks for sharing that. Now, when Shijo, when you look at this journey of yours, right, starting from when you started working in Thrissur as part of the design team, and to the entrepreneur that you have become now. Okay, who or what would you like to give the credit for your success to?
I've not reached like a huge position, but I've been good enough to make some you know make a comfortable income out of it, not like a huge seller or e-commerce entrepreneur or something like that. But I think I couldn't have planned it this way, or somebody specific could not have guided me to reach at this stage. So I think it's more of a process, and it's more of like a river. You flow and flow and flow and reach a particular stage. So I've consumed a lot of content. I've had like a lot of mentors in terms of online mentors. I have consumed in terms of mindset, in terms of e-commerce, in terms of business, in terms of sales, in terms of thinking. I've consumed a lot of content. So these content and knowledge has helped me, but it's not
Mm,
something specific some person has told me, or some specific person who has guided me that has ended up me being here. And I think
yeah.
it's more of again an organic process, and uh, it was there. I was always trying to figure out things, and the curiosity thing was always there. And other thing was, I always wanted to be productive, so I didn't like uh, spending my time on unproductive stuff. Uh, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's worked out. Not everybody does want to do that. So I feel guilty when I don't do something productive. I don't think that's very healthy, because you do need to spend like waste some time. And I think it's more of, again, I find leisure, and maybe I go for jogs. That's one thing I do. Again, it helps my mind to be in a good state. Jogging is something that I have found helpful to keep track of my head. Another thing is, I go to the beach sometimes. I feel that's a good reboot as well. And these days I do consciously spend like to spend time with people who are close to me, and give them some time, and I feel that's important as well. So I make sure that even though I have a lot to do, I spend that time.
Okay, so that's great. Consciously take out time and spend time with your loved ones. Um, Tell us about that side of your life. What was the last movie you saw?
uh, to be frank, in terms of movie, I'm not a very a movie buff per se, but the last one I saw is the latest Avatar. I tend to gravitate towards movies which are more modern or technology based. And other thing is movies that involve a lot of entrepreneurship and stories about entrepreneurs. Something like you had a movie about the social network, and you know Wolf of Wall Street. Those sort of movies.
Very nice, nice, nice. It's good to know the other side of you as well, the lighter side, the leisure. So, Shijo, one final question as we wrap up here.
Yeah.
What's the best way that people can benefit from the products that you sell or the services that you offer in your company?
In terms of reaching out to me, I'm available on the socials. So I'm available on Instagram. I'm available on Facebook. So people could easily reach out to me there. They can search my name, and I should pop up there. If it doesn't take much of my time, I would be free to help, because it's more of a connection part of it. And if you want us directly to come and spend our time on it, then we could discuss in terms of how much it would be, and what plan suit you. But overall, if Sachin comes and asks me, Shijo, how to do this, and it's not like I'm gonna tell you something or like that. I'll give you the advice, and guide you on how to do things. And feel free to message me. I'll be I always like a good conversation. That's how we met up last time.
Yeah.
I really like to connect with people who are entrepreneurs, who are like-minded, who want to grow, who are always thinking about building something in the world. So I definitely like that, and that's how I connected with you, Sachin, as well. I was like, Sachin, you are doing an amazing job in terms of your podcast, and you're doing something good. And I always wanted to do that. I had taken some steps towards that, but I never went through it because I had other things to do. That's one thing, and the other technical part of it was a bit of overwhelming for me. So I didn't have the time to spend to sort it out. That's how I reached out to Sachin, and I told you like, Sachin, you are doing a good job. Can you show me? And you were good enough to actually show me how it's done and the tools that you are using. And I feel motivated when I speak to people like you who are creators and who wants to do something creative. So if somebody wants to discuss, bounce some ideas, I'm always free for a cup of coffee and we could discuss.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yes, Shijo, thank you so much. And thanks for coming on the show and taking our time and sharing your journey with us. Thank you so much for coming on the Be Your Own Boss podcast.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you for inviting me. The chat was really good. You had very thought-provoking questions. It helped me as well, and hopefully we could chat again soon. And I could use the tips that you have given me in terms of starting a podcast. Maybe I'll start my own. You know, I'd be looking forward to seeing you as one of my guests as well.
Definitely. That would be my pleasure to come on your show as the guest. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was Shijo Vadakkan, founder of VKN Enterprises, and you've been listening to Be Your Own Boss.